So this time we're all about astigmatism, huh?
Yeah.
Looks like someone out there is ready to see clearly and ditch the blur.
And we're here to help with that. You know, it's interesting how many people actually have astigmatism and don't even realize it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense when you think about all the things that could cause blurry vision. How would you know if it's astigmatism specifically?
Well, it all starts with understanding how your eye works, right? Think of a normal eye, like a perfectly round basketball.
Right.
Light enters the eye, bounces off that nice curved surface, and focuses on a single point at the back. That's your retina.
Right. Round shape, even focus, perfect vision. Gotcha.
Exactly. But with astigmatism, picture this. Instead of a basketball, you've got a football.
Ah, okay. So different curves going in different directions.
Precisely. And that's where the trouble starts. Instead of a single focus point, the light gets scattered, and boom, blurry or distorted vision.
So it's kind of like watching a movie through a warped lens,
Yeah.
right? Things just aren't quite sharp.
Perfect analogy. And the thing is, this warping, this astigmatism, it's not one size fits all. There's a whole spectrum of how severe it can be.
Yeah, that's something that really jumped out at me from the articles you sent. It's not just a yes or no kind of thing.
Right. Some people, they have such a slight astigmatism that they don't even need to correct it. Their vision might be a little blurry, but nothing that really interferes with their life.
Makes sense.
But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people dealing with much more significant astigmatism, and they're experiencing constant blurriness, even up close.
So that brings up the question, when does astigmatism actually need to be corrected? If you've got it, do you automatically need glasses?
Not always. No, it really boils down to how much it's actually affecting your vision. If it's mild and not really bothering you, you might be fine without glasses. But
There's always a but.
But if it's causing noticeable blurriness, giving you headaches, making your eyes strain, especially when you're trying to do things like read or drive, well, then it's definitely time to think about corrective measures.
So basically, don't panic if you're diagnosed with a mild case, but don't ignore those telltale signs either.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to get a proper, comprehensive eye exam.
Absolutely, folks. None of those online vision tests. Go see a professional. It's not always just about astigmatism either, is it? I mean, a lot of what we've been looking at mentions that it often goes hand in hand with other vision issues.
That's very true. You'll often see astigmatism paired up with things like nearsightedness or farsightedness, which can make it really hard to figure out the root of your blurry vision on your own.
So if you're out there squinting at street signs, how do you know if it's astigmatism, nearsightedness, or maybe one too many late nights catching up on your favorite shows?
That's where having an eye doctor comes in handy. They have the knowledge and all the fancy tools to really pinpoint what's going on.
And figure out the best way to tackle it. Speaking of which, let's talk about those corrective options. Glasses are the obvious first choice, but what else is out there?
Oh, there's a whole world of possibilities beyond glasses.
Intriguing. Are we talking contacts, laser eye surgery, maybe even some futuristic bionic eyes?
We're not quite at bionic eyes yet, but we'll definitely dive into contact lenses, LASIK, and other exciting alternatives.
Okay, now you've piqued my curiosity. Let's start with the basics. When we're talking glasses specifically designed for astigmatism, what are we looking at?
We're talking toric lenses. Those are the key when it comes to glasses for astigmatism.
Toric lenses. Okay, sounds fancy. What sets those apart from regular lenses?
Well, think of a regular lens like a magnifying glass, right? You've got the same magnification power across the whole thing. But toric lenses, they're different. They have different powers built into different areas of the lens. It's like having multiple prescriptions in one.
Multiple prescriptions. Wow. So it's not just making things bigger or smaller like regular lenses do.
Nope. Remember how we talked about astigmatism being all about the uneven curve of your eye? Well, toric lenses are specially designed to compensate for that. They have different strengths, different powers, along specific axes, like fine-tuning a camera lens, but in multiple directions at once.
Okay, starting to get the picture. But how does that actually work? Different powers in different areas. It's kind of blowing my mind a little.
Imagine your eye like a clock face, all right?
Okay, got my clock face right in the middle of my pupil. Very stylish.
Now, picture lines running through the center of that clock, connecting the numbers. A line from 12 to 6, 3 to 9, you get the idea. Those lines are called meridians.
Meridians. Gotcha. So it's not just about the overall shape of the eye, but also about how the curvature changes along these meridians.
You nailed it. And that's where those different powers come in. A toric lens has a specific power for one meridian and then a different power for the meridian running perpendicular to it. And that's how it balances out the uneven way your eye is bending the light, brings everything into focus.
So it's like these lenses have a map of your eye's own personal quirks, and they're compensating for them.
Exactly. And just like regular eyeglass lenses, you've got choices when it comes to the material for toric lenses, too.
Oh, so it's not just about picking out a cool frame. There's more to the decision-making.
Definitely. For mild astigmatism, the standard plastic lenses, those often work just fine, but bump up the severity, and you might need something thinner, lighter, like polycarbonate or Trivex. Those materials can handle the higher prescription strengths that you often need with more significant astigmatism.
It's like choosing the right fabric for a tailored suit,
Yeah.
right? It's got to fit your specific measurements.
No, that's a great way to put it. And speaking of measurements, ever notice that cylinder value on your eyeglass prescription?
Oh, yeah. Always wondered what that number was all about. Sounds very sciencey.
It's actually pretty simple. That cylinder value, that's what tells you the difference in power between those two meridians we talked about. The steepest part of your cornea, the flattest part, what's the difference? That's your cylinder.
So a higher cylinder number means you've got a more pronounced case of astigmatism.
You got it. And often, it's that cylinder measurement that's going to determine what kind of lens material will work best for you. Higher cylinder often means those thinner and lighter materials we mentioned.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've got the shape, the meridians, the cylinder.
Yeah.
It's all about precision, isn't it? But what about those of us who are contact lens devotees? Are there toric options for us too?
Absolutely. Toric contact lenses work on that same principle we've been talking about. There's different powers in different areas, all to counteract the uneven curvature of the eye.
So you don't have to feel limited by astigmatism, even if you'd rather skip the whole glasses thing.
Exactly. Options abound. But there are a few extra things to think about with contacts, specifically making sure those meridians stay lined up properly on your eye.
Right. Otherwise, that whole different powers in different areas thing isn't going to work so well, is it?
Exactly. And, early versions of toric contacts, they sometimes had issues with rotating out of place. But thankfully, technology has marched on.
Oh, tell me more about these advancements, because a spinning contact lens, yeah, that does not sound ideal.
You and me both. But these days, you've got things like prism ballasts in those toric contacts.
Prism ballasts. Okay, now those sound intriguing and maybe a little complicated.
They're pretty clever, actually. Basically, they're these tiny weighted areas built right into the lens, almost like adding a little counterweight. They use gravity to help keep the lens oriented properly right on your eye.
So even when you blink or move your eyes around, they stay put.
That's the idea. They're designed to give you clear, stable vision, even if you're living life in the fast lane.
That's reassuring. Okay, so we've covered glasses, we've covered contacts, both using these amazing toric lenses to address astigmatism. But we'd be remiss if we didn't venture into the world of laser eye surgery, wouldn't we?
Laser eye surgery. Now we're talking ultimate vision correction.
It does feel pretty futuristic, right? Like something on Star Trek. And I'm always game to explore those cutting-edge options. So when it comes to astigmatism, what kind of laser-powered solutions are we talking about?
Well, the most common one you'll hear about is LASIK. It stands for laser-assisted in situ keratomileusis.
Catchy. But for those of us who don't speak laser, what's the plain English version? What does it actually do?
Remember how we've been talking about the cornea, that front part of your eye, how it's shaped more like a football than a basketball when you have astigmatism?
Yeah, the root of all our blurry vision evils.
Exactly. So LASIK uses a super precise laser to actually reshape your cornea. It smooths out those irregular curves and tries to get it closer to that nice spherical shape.
So it's literally reshaping your eye with laser.
All right.
While you're awake?
Yep.
Okay, I'll be honest, that sounds a little intense.
I get it. It's natural to feel a little apprehensive. But LASIK technology has advanced so much, it's actually a really quick procedure and generally pretty comfortable. They use numbing drops, and the laser part itself only takes a few minutes for each eye.
Well, that's good to know.
Okay.
But even before the laser part, our research mentioned something about creating a flap in the cornea.
That's right. With LASIK, they create this really thin flap in the outer layer of your cornea. They can do it with a super precise blade or even a special laser, and then they lift that flap up, which lets them get to the corneal tissue underneath.
Okay, so they lift the flap, reshape the cornea underneath with the laser, and then they just put the flap back down. And it sticks.
It sounds simpler than it is, but that's basically it. Your cornea is amazing at healing itself. Once they put the flap back where it belongs, it naturally adheres back in place. No stitches needed.
The human body is wild. But I imagine there's still some recovery time, right? Probably no marathon eye rubbing sessions for a while.
You got that right. The procedure itself is quick, but your eyes do need time to heal properly. You'll have some instructions to follow, like using medicated eye drops, and yes, definitely avoiding any eye rubbing.
So how long until you're back to normal? Asking for a friend, of course, who may or may not be considering ESIC as we speak.
Well, most people actually see a huge difference within the first 24 hours. Colors might seem brighter, things will look clearer overall, even if it's still a little bit hazy.
Sounds promising.
It really is. And then over the next few days and weeks, your vision will continue to get better and better as your cornea heals. It's different for everyone, of course, but most people can go back to their normal routine, driving, working, all that good stuff, within a few days.
That sounds good. Well, going from blurry to potentially perfect vision in a matter of days. It almost sounds too good to be true. Are there any downsides, any risks that people should be aware of?
Well, like any surgical procedure, it's important to know both the good and the bad, and LASIK is no exception. It does have a very high success rate, but there are potential side effects, things like dry eyes, maybe seeing halos around lights, and in rare cases, there can be more serious complications.
Which is why it's so crucial to talk to a qualified eye surgeon, right?
Absolutely. They can evaluate your individual situation, your medical history, and help you decide if LASIK is the right choice for you.
And what if it's not? Are there other laser eye surgery options out there for dealing with astigmatism? I know we came across something called PRK in our
That sounds
research.
like memory. Yeah, PRK, which stands for photorefractive keratectomy, is another type of laser eye surgery that can be really effective for astigmatism. It's actually been around even longer than LASIK.
Really? So what's the difference between the two?
The main difference is in how they prep your cornea. Remember that flap they make in LASIK? Well, PRK doesn't involve any flaps. Instead, they remove a very thin layer, the outermost layer of your cornea. It's called the epithelium.
They remove it entirely. What happens to that?
Don't worry, it regenerates. It's just like when you get a scrape on your skin. The top layer grows back over time.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So they remove the epithelium, then they use the laser to reshape the cornea underneath, and then that outer layer grows back.
Exactly. And because they're not creating a flap with PRK, it can be a better choice for some people, like those with thinner corneas or those who are more prone to eye injuries.
Interesting. So even though it sounds a little more intense, removing a layer of your eye and it could actually be the safer option for some.
It really depends on you. It's about weighing the pros and cons, your individual needs, and your risk tolerance. Talking to your doctor is key.
Makes sense. I've got to admit, though, I'm kind of hooked on this idea of waving goodbye to glasses or contacts forever. It's amazing what they can do these days.
It really is remarkable, and it's only getting better. The field is constantly evolving. We're seeing amazing advancements all the time, from even more precise lasers to implantable lenses that can correct vision from inside your eye. The future of eye care is a pretty exciting place to be.
I can't wait to see what they come up with next.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we've covered a ton of ground on astigmatism. From the shape of the eye to the technology that's changing how we see, it's been quite a journey.
It's all about arming yourself with knowledge, especially when it comes to your health.
Couldn't agree more. Hopefully this deep dive has given everyone out there a clearer picture of astigmatism. You've got options, and knowing what they are is the first step. And hey, who knows, maybe down the road we'll do a follow-up episode and dive into those futuristic lens implants you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a deep dive I would definitely tune in for.
Until then, stay curious, keep those eyes healthy, and as always, thanks for listening.